ثمرة فؤادي، فقال يا أمه إني يشم عندك راية طيبة كأنها راية جدي رسول الله. فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء، فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه. فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي يا أمه إني يشم عندك راية طيبة كأنها راية جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت نعم إن جدك وحاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدة. السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن نكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني يشم عندك راية طيبة كأنها راية عي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لواي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أحظى بي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومع بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي عليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل: يا ربي، يتأذنني أن أحبط إلى الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم، قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. علي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويهسك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مذية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر حبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانية: يا علي، والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر حبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. الله.
और दीगर सलवात। तू बड़ी दुखी है फातिमा, 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 अब भी रो रही है फातिमा, अब भी रो रही है फातिमा, तू बड़ी दुखी है फातिमा, तू बड़ी दुखी है फातिमा, जोरिदा तेरी है फातिमा, जोरिदा तेरी है फातिमा, खून से भरी है फातिमा, खून से भरी है फातिमा, तू बड़ी ہے فاطمہ تو بڑی دکھی ہے فاطمہ پسلیوں سے رس رہا ہے خون پسلیوں سے رس رہا ہے خون سانس لے رہی ہے فاطمہ سانس لے رہی ہے فاطمہ تو بڑی دکھی ہے فاطمہ تو بڑی دکھی ہے فاطمہ فاطمہ کو کھا گئی ہے فاطمہ تو بڑی دکھی ہے فاطمہ محسن علی ہے فاطمہ محسن علی ہے فاطمہ صلوات
صلوات ہائے 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 ایک جوگر گے فاطمہ نے علی سے چھپائے ہیں کنگھائی میں کنیز کو اپنی سنائی ہے ہائے بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتا کے ہوئے بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتا کے ہوئے حسن گے کھا گئے مجھ کو حسن گے کھا گئے مجھ کو کماکھ کھا کے ہوئے بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتا کے ہوئے نہ جانے کیا کیا ظالم نے فاطمہ پہ ستم ضعیف ہو گئی بیٹی رسول کی غم سنگ کے ٹکڑوں کو گربار میں اٹھا کے ہوئے بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتا کے ہوئے جو مجھ پہ گزری گئے مجھ سے نہ ہو سکے گی بیان وہ خواب بھی گئے گی بار پر لہو کے نشان میں دیکھتی ہوں انہیں روز آ کے جا کے ہوئے بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتاتے ہوئے بتایا سب کو جو مفہوم ہے ولایت کا، لبوں پہ شکوہ نبی کے رسول کی آیا، علی علی کیا تازیان کھا کے ہوئے، بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتا کے ہوئے، بروز حشر میں مہنگی کو یہ بتاؤں گی، تمام پسلیاں ٹوٹی ہیں اس لیے میری، لڑی نے مارا تھا تو کر سے آ کے جا کے ہوئے، بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتا کے ہوئے، ابوالحسن کو تھا پتکے سے میں نے تھاما ہوا، مگر نہیں درے سے یوں مجھے مارا، زمیں پہ گر گئی فضا میں لڑکھڑا کے ہوئے، بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتا کے ہوئے، میرا فریضہ نبھائے گی لاڈلی میری، گرے گا شولوں میں جس وقت ایک اور علی، چلے گی آگ پہ زینب سے بچا کے ہوئے، بطول رو پری فضا کو یہ بتا کے ہوئے، صلوات۔
صلوات۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد۔
بلخیس پاس پائیں یہ کس کی جناب ہے، مریم درود خواہیں یہ کس کی جناب ہے، شان خدایا ہے یہ کس کی جناب ہے، دہلیز آسماں ہے یہ کہ دہلیز آسماں ہے یہ کس کی
جناب ہے،
کرسی زمین سے لیتی ہے گوشے پناہ کے، بیٹا ہے عرش سائے میں کے، بیٹا ہے عرش سائے میں کے، بارگاہ الفت خدا کے بعد حبیب خدا کی ہے، منصف کے پاس یہ بھی ولا کبریا کی ہے، پروانہ فاقے کینہ شکایت غذا کی ہے، ایذا فخر جدائی خیر، ایذا فخر جدائی خیر الورا کی ہے، آب و خزاں کی فکر نہ سونے کا دیا ہے آنکھوں میں شکل باپ کی رو آنکھوں میں شکل باپ کی رونے کے دیا بیٹے پکارتے ہیں کہ للہ بہراؤ اماں نہ اتنا رو غلاموں پہ رحم کھاؤ نانا کہاں گئے ہیں بلا لائے ہم بتاؤ ہم کپڑے پاتے ہم کپڑے پاتے نہیں تو گلے نانا کے بعد ہائے یہ بے قدر ہم ہوئے سب ایک طرف حضور کے بھی سب ایک طرف حضور کے بھی پیار
کم ہوئے
آخر وفور گریہ سے عاجز ہوئے عرب حیدر کے پاس رونے کی فریاد لائے سب کی عرض فاطمہ سے کہوں اے ولی رب یا سیدہ تمہاری رئی یا سیدہ تمہاری رئی ہے کھانے کا کوئی وقت نہ سونے کا وقت ہے جو وقت ہے وہ آپ کے رو جو وقت ہے وہ آپ کے رونے کا وقت ہے باہر سے مرتضیٰ گئے گھر میں جھکائے سر مونڈھا پہ رو رہی تھی اکیلی وہ خوش سیر دینے لگے پیام عرب شاہ بیروبر گھبرا کے بولی ہائے کروں گھبرا کے بولی ہائے کروں کیا میں خوابوں میں موت ہوئے تو مر جاؤں یا علی بابا کا سوگ لے کے بابا کا سوگ لے کے کدھر
جاؤں یا علی
میری طرف سے لے مدینہ کو دو پیام لوگوں قفا نہ ہو میری رخصت ہے صبح و شام تو 4 دن تمہارے محلے میں ہے یہ مقام رونے کی دھوم ہو چکی رونے کی دھوم ہو چکی اب کام
ہے تمام
گھبراتی ہوں وطن میں سفر کے مہینے سے بابا صدارے کام مجھے بابا صدارے کام مجھے
کیا مدینے سے
بولی کہ آج رات کو ہو جاؤں گی بحال کل میرے کاروبار میں تم ہوں گے خود نڈال خدمت کا میرے بچوں کی ہوگا کسی خیال نہلا دلا دیا کے پرے نہلا دلا دیا کے پرے شام
تھا ان کا حال
کرتے بھی دوئے خود بھی کل تک کا دے چلی صحرا نہ دیکھا ایک یہ صحرا نہ دیکھا ایک یہ پھر تو ہر ایک محلے میں شر بپا ہوا اپنے پرائے دو دیکھے ہے یہ کیا ہوا فضا پکاری سیدہ کا واقعہ ہوا حجرہ بطول پاک ماں حجرہ بطول پاک ماں
تم سرا ہوا
چاہتی خلق سے دیکھنے والوں کی پھٹ گئی، مورک کے منہ پہ مردے کے زین، مورک کے منہ پہ مردے کے زینب
لپٹ گئی،
میں دودھ بخشوانے نہ پائی کہ چل بسی، شربت بنا کے لانے نہ پائی کہ چل بسی، کچھ حال دل سنانے نہ پائی کہ چل بسی، میں بے نصیبان، میں بے نصیبان نہ کیا جلد تر زمانہ ہوئے انتقال کا، ہے ابھی تو سنتا کلا، ہے تو ابھی تو سنتا کلا، 18
سال کا
اے میری فاقہ کشمیری نادر ام جان، اے میری بے دوا میری بیمار ام جان، کعبے کی آبرو میری سردار ام جان، اے میری صابرہ میری، اے میری صابرہ میری نام وی توتی کوئی تازہ خطاب دو، اماں جواب
دو میری،
اماں جواب
دو میری،
اماں جواب دو میری،
ماں جواب دو،
ننھے سے سر کھلے ہیں نہیں سر پہ ٹوپیاں، کہتے ہیں کچھ تو منہ سے نکلتا ہے ہائے ماں، لکھا ہے جب جنازے پہ پہنچا وہ نیم جان، حضرت سے دیکھا مردہ کا منہ، حضرت کا دیکھا مردہ کا منہ،
اور یہ کی فغان
اماں غلام آئے ہیں رخصت کے واسطے، جاتی ہو تم نبی کی جاتی ہو تم جاتی ہو تم نبی کی زیارت کی واسطے.
رحم الله ما يقرأ سورة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your loudest salawat is condolences to the master of our time, Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكرنا المساء بآل Muhammad. May Allah increase in our reward for commemorating the difficulties of the Ahlul Bayt. The verse that we begin our discussion with is from Surah Al-Dhuha. In Surah Al-Dhuha, Allah makes a statement to our Holy Prophet, وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Soon your Lord will give you and you will be well pleased with what He gives you. The question about what does Allah give our Holy Prophet, some Mufassirin look at the context of the surah and say the previous verse says, وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى, that the hereafter is better for you than what comes now. So they make an assumption and they say that when Allah says, and Allah will give you something that will make you very happy, they point to the idea that this that Allah will give to the Prophet is in the hereafter. And some point to the idea that the Prophet on the Day of Judgment is the first one to have intercession to help his nation, and Allah will let him intercede for many people in his nation, and will ask him, are you pleased now? And our Prophet will reply, yes, that I am pleased, and this is where Allah says, I will give you so much, فَتَرْضَى, that you'll be satisfied with it. So the other Mufassirin point to the fact and say that Allah is someone that when He makes a promise, He doesn't just fulfill His promise in the hereafter, He fulfills His promise in this world and the hereafter. Now when Allah makes a promise like soon your Lord, وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ, soon your Lord will give you, فَتَرْضَى, and you'll be pleased, that this promise has to be something that is fulfilled in this life and in the hereafter. Because the justice of Allah demands that if He's giving you, He gives you so much and He gives you in every situation that it can't be said that if someone, for example, only believed in this world and didn't believe in the hereafter, he would say that the Quran lied. Prophet wasn't given anything. So others came forward and said, what will the Prophet be given is the victories in battles, and that this message of Islam will become the message of this world, and that is what Allah will give the Prophet, and the Prophet will be pleased by this. This is something problematic as well too, because the Prophet's interest was never to amass numbers. The Prophet was never interested in dunya and in this world. He was never interested in those things that would make him powerful and a king in this world, to such an extent that even when our Prophet was the leader of this Muslim world, and it came bigger and bigger and bigger, they said when we would enter into a room where he was sitting with his companions, we would have to ask, who is the Prophet? There was no seat of designation and authority that would show who the Prophet was, meaning he didn't care about these things. So they said that even this interpretation falls short, that why would the Prophet care? Why would that make the Prophet happy that he became the leader of an empire? So others then look and say that no, there is something that Allah gives the Prophet even in this world that makes the Prophet happy. And they point to and they say that Allah in Surah Al-Kawthar begins, Inna a'ataynaka Kawthar. That certainly we have given you Kawthar. Kawthar, one of its interpretations is khayr al-kathir, a great goodness. That Allah is promising and saying to the Prophet, I gave you a great goodness. What is this great goodness? Again, some said this is Jannah, some said this is different points, some said this is various spiritual affairs. But the end of this surah points to and says, وَإِنَّ شَأْنِيَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. Soon your enemies will know who has no lineage. Who is abtar, without a following. So they described and said, whatever this khayr al-kathir is that Allah gives the Prophet after promising him something good, will be that from which it will prove that the Prophet had children and had a lineage, and it was his enemies who had no continuation. Such that today, when we interpret and talk about Surah Al-Kawthar, one of the interpretations of Surah Al-Kawthar is that Al-Kawthar and Khayr Al-Kathir is none other than his daughter Fatima Zahra Salamullahi alayha. Allah makes a promise, I will give you something amazing that will make you happy and pleased. And in the other verse he says, I have given you Khayr al-Kathir, and that Khayr al-Kathir is Fatima Zahra, and that is what pleases the Prophet in this world and gives him a lineage and is a source of his happiness. To the extent where we even see the narrations of our Prophet when he talks about Bibi Fatema, he says, Fatima is a piece of me. And that who has upset her has upset me, and who has upset me has upset Allah, and who has pleased her has pleased me, and who has pleased me has pleased Allah. And he describes and he shows the status of Sayyidah Fatima as being a part of him. The significance is that when we mention these attributes of how special she is to the Holy Prophet and how special she is to the religion of Islam, that remembering her shahadat is not just about remembering something that happened in history, but understanding that knowing who she is and knowing what her status is important to my Islam. And for me to be a good Muslim, for me to really love the Prophet and to know what the Prophet preached, I have to know about this lady. And if I don't know about her, then there's something great that the Prophet gave us. There's something great that the Prophet taught us about. There's something great about the message of Islam that we've lost. So much so that if we don't understand who this lady is, we really haven't understood our Prophet at all. And we'll get to that in a few points with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bibi Fatima is like no other lady in history. She is the greatest of all of the ladies of this world. And some of the attributes of how she can possess that are given to us by her names and her titles that Allah designated for her. I'll give you an example. One of the titles of Bibi Fatima is Muhadditha. Muhadditha is that one to whom the angels speak. Now, let me explain something. While in Anbiya, we know a prophet is someone to whom Allah speaks, there were also ladies who weren't prophets of Allah to whom Allah spoke. For example, when we talk about Nabi Musa, when he was born, his mother received revelation and Allah spoke to her to tell her that take this baby and put him in the basket and put it in the water and we'll return him to you. She received wahi from Allah to give her instruction and explanation of what to accomplish. Bibi Maryam, before Nabi Isa was born, received revelation from Allah as well too. Inna Allah astafaki wa tahharaki wa istafaki ala sa'ir nisa'il alameen. Allah tells us that I sent Jibreel to give revelation to Bibi Maryam to let her know that I have chosen you and purified you and chosen you over all of the women of this world, and I have blessed you with Isa ibn Maryam. This is an example of a lady receiving revelation. In that same sense, Bibi Fatima was someone who received revelation as well too, which is why she's known as Muhadditha, the one to whom the angels spoke. But the revelation that was given to Bibi Fatima was greater, longer, and more amazing in its capacity than any of the other ladies previous. Which is why, even when Bibi Fatima asks the Holy Prophet, she says, "Oh Rasulullah, what is my status?" And Rasulullah replies and he says, "Oh Fatima, anti, you are Sayyidatun Nisa'il Alamin. You are a leader of the women of this world." Bibi Fatima says, "But this was the title of Maryam as well." Our Prophet explains, he says, "Maryam was the leader of the women of her time. You, Fatima, are a leader of the women of all of time." When we talk about the revelation given to her, the description describes and says that Sayyidah Fatima receives a revelation after the shahadat of the Prophet. That the loss of the Prophet was something so great on Bibi Fatima that Allah gave Jibreel a revelation to teach to Bibi Fatima. And this is known as what's called Mushaf Fatima, to show the azamat of her status in the eyes of religion, that she receives a complete book in revelation. When someone asked our sixth Imam, what is this revelation that she received? The Imam replies and he says, this is a book that was given to Bibi Fatima that is 3 times the length of the Holy Quran. It contains nothing of the Quran, but has information of everything that came before and everything that will come till the Day of Judgment. Another alim, in explaining this, he says, you didn't understand what she got. Are you guys with me? This is interesting. This is something that fascinates me as well too. So he says, the purpose of this revelation was to console Bibi Fatima on the passing of her father. So the revelation that was given to her was actually explaining the fada'il and azamat of the status of her father. To explain the status of Rasulullah, Jibreel began the story of humanity from the beginning to show how great Rasulullah was. And explaining the azamat and the greatness of Rasulullah, he gave all of the history of humanity and how our Prophet was a mercy to all of humanity from the beginning until the coming of the Prophet. And then he continued with the greatness of the Prophet after his passing by explaining the sons of Rasulullah and what they would do in this world as the status of how amazing Rasulullah was to give consolation to Bibi Fatima. And in explaining the fada'il and the greatness of Rasulullah in this book, all of the history of humanity and all that will come in humanity was given in the book of Bibi Fatema. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is just one of her titles. If we look at another of her titles where she is known as Abiha, the mother of her father. Now, depending on how we read history, she's given this title after Bibi Khadija passes away and she takes care of Rasulullah and cares for him. In some narrations, in some events of history, she begins taking care of her father at the age of 5. The age of 5, she receives this title. Now, understand something. The wives of the Prophet are known as al-Mu'mineen, the mothers of the believers. And this is a great status. وَأَزْوَاجُهُ أُمَّهَاتُهُم. In Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah mentions and He says, النَّبِيُّ أَوْلَى بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَأَزْوَاجُهُ أُمَّهَاتُهُم. That the Prophet, Allah explains in Surah Al-Ahzab, the Prophet has a greater status over the believers than they have over themselves. And the wives of the Prophet are the mothers of the believers. This status of being mothers of the believers is something that Muslimin in general are fascinated by. They think it's an amazing thing to have achieved, that Allah would give someone the status of al-Mu'mineen. And they say that if they have been given this status, they deserve unlimited amounts of respect for being given this title. The reality of this title in itself is a longer conversation that talks about that this wasn't an honorific, but rather was a responsibility and a restriction on these women. But the title of being known as the mother of your father, they were just the believers. But what about that Prophet who was rahmatul lil alameen, a mercy to all of humanity, not just the believers? That he gives you the designation that you treat me as if you were my mother and you take care of me in a way that it's as if you are my mother. This title isn't given to anyone else in history. No one else has earned this as attribute and status that Rasulullah would say that you are like my mother to me and to take care of me in that process. It showed the uniqueness of the relationship between Rasulullah and Bibi Fatema and how unique and special Bibi Fatema was, that the Prophet would give her these types of titles. Even the name of Bibi Fatema, Fatima, is something unique within itself. Let me explain. She's not the first person to be named Fatima. That's true. Fatima bint Asad, some of her aunts prior to her had the name Fatima. But what's different is that the one who names her Fatima is not the Prophet, but is Allah who names her Fatima. Let me explain something. You and I, when we name somebody, we name them with the hope that they will be, please forgive me for lack of better, ahsan, good. I'll do good things. I want you to do good things, so I name you ahsan. I want you to do good things, I name you Haydar. I want you to be brave. I want for you to possess this attribute, therefore I give you the name. But when Allah gives someone a name, it's not because He wants them to possess that attribute, it is because they are the perfection of that attribute, that they are named by Allah in that format. Which is why, when we see, for example, Bibi Zainab is named by Allah and she is the adornment of her father, not maybe, but definitely. When we see Allah name Imam Hussein, he is definitely goodness that he is named Hussein. When we see Allah name Imam Hassan, Hassan is definitely goodness in the sense Allah named him that he's goodness for all humanity in all times. And when Allah names Sayyida Zahra Fatima, then she is the exact exemplary attribute of Fatima. What does Fatima mean? Fatima comes from the one who separates. To such that our own Prophet asked Jibreel, Allah has given her this name. What is meant by the attribute of this name? The significance of why he asked this question is not because Rasulullah doesn't know what the intention of Allah is, but so that you and I today understand why this lady is so important, why we need to attach ourselves to her example. So he asks, Ya Jibreel, لِمَاذَا سُمِّيَتْهَا فَاطِمَةً? Why was she named Fatima in this earth? And it's to teach us. And Jibreel replies, لأنها فتم شيعتها عن النار وفتم أعداؤها عن حبها. Jibreel replies and he says, she is named Fatima because in this world she is that litmus by which those that attach themselves to her, she takes them away from the fire and punishment of hell. See, in this earth, everyone looks the same. Meaning you can be a good person, you can be a bad person. I can't simply look at you and see goodness and badness. I can't immediately look at you and determine what your status is with the eyes of Allah. He has hidden our records, so we can't tell. Kind of like we hide our bank accounts, right? You can't see someone and see their bank account. You can see something that may look like, oh, this guy might be rich, but really he may have nothing. In that same sense, Allah hides the affairs of the people, and in this world, the good and the bad are all mixed together. You can't tell the difference between them. Allah, when He has mixed everyone together, He's also set a scale by which that each of us can know what our reality is with Allah, so that we know, are we good or are we bad? And He explains and He says, this Fatima is that scale for the Shia, for those who are her followers, that they will be saved from the fire of hell for the one who is attached to her, that she is the one who will take them away from the fire of hell. But not just that she will take the ones who follow her from the fire of hell, but it goes further. Fatima, Allah will then separate from her the enemies and separate them from her love and her support. That Allah uses her as a litmus in this world, a test in this world to separate and to differentiate between those who are good and who will be saved and those who are bad. And those who are bad, she doesn't push anyone away, but rather Allah pulls them away from her, that they can't benefit from her support and from her help. Showing the uniqueness of her status, that even Allah has given her something special, that in her name is something that is associated with understanding what is true faith and what is not faith. This is why in her example, we will find the explanation that those who understand and appreciate her are those who are attached to the path of Allah, and those who ignore her or stay away from her are the enemies of Allah. One example of this comes from the aspect of when we talk about something called the Garden of Fadak. The Garden of Fadak in the history of Islam does have significance. How? When we take a look and we see that there was the fourth battle of Islam, the fourth famous battle of Islam was called the Battle of Khaybar. Khaybar was a fortress that was in charge of protecting the lands that were owned by the Jewish people in the area of Hijaz. And why the Jewish people were in Hijaz when something other is supposed to be special to them is another conversation we can have at another point in time. But in Hijaz, these families from the Bani Israel that had established themselves in Arabia had picked very good real estate. And they had created a fortress that would protect all of their real estate and their wealth, and they became very wealthy and powerful in the lands of Hijaz. And they began to attack the Muslimin. And eventually, the Holy Prophet was forced to send an army to conquer this fortress. And between the battles, eventually the Muslimin won. Around this fort were some of the best and most fertile lands of Arabia that produced a great amount of wealth. When the people who lived in these fertile lands, these very wealthy lands, saw that the Muslimin were about to conquer, or that they conquered the fortress of Khaybar, they knew that after the fortress falls, the Muslimin will come and conquer all of these lands. And when they realized that their lands were going to be conquered, if the Muslims conquer your lands, everything gets split up amongst all of the Muslims. And they realized our life work, our heritage will be split and lost, and everything will be gone, and they wanted to preserve everything that they had built. They remembered that after the Battle of Khandaq, the Banu Qurayza, who was a tribe of the Bani Israel, had committed treachery against the Prophet of Islam. And in the case of that treachery, they had picked a judge other than the Holy Prophet to judge between the Prophet and the treacherous people. And that judge essentially decided that all of the men of Banu Qurayza, who were the ones who committed treason against the Prophet and broken the treaty, were to be killed. When this edict was passed, the Prophet went to them and said, had you come to me as a judge, I would have been merciful to you. I would not have put you through such a difficulty, but now that you chose your judge, and your judge is the one who has made this decision, now you have to deal with the consequences. The people around Khaybar remembered this incident and they realized that we want the mercy of the Prophet. We don't want to be conquered and we don't want our properties and our wealth to be split. So what they did was they went to the Holy Prophet after the fall of Khaybar, before the Muslimin conquered them, and they said, we forfeit. And the Prophet says, what do you mean? They said, we surrender ourselves to you, Ya Rasulullah, instead that we should not be conquered by the Muslims. Now remember something, anytime the Muslim army would fight, if the Muslimin won that fight, everything that was conquered, everybody got a piece of the wealth. But if the Muslimin didn't fight, and the person willingly went over and said, I surrender to the Holy Prophet, that became the property of the Holy Prophet, not the property of the Muslimin. So all of these wealthy lands said that we've built this so hard, we've done so much work, we have so much wealth, we don't want to lose everything that we've built, so what we'll do is we'll surrender ourselves to your mercy, Ya Rasulullah, and you can do with us whatever you want. And no Muslim has a right to this property other than Rasulullah. Rasulullah accepts their surrender to him personally, accepts them being under his authority, and says that this is now my property. And in his life, he takes this property that is his privately, not the Muslimin, and gives its authority to Bibi Fatema in his life. Now what happens? This is a great amount of wealth. It's a great amount of property, and you see that the Ahlul Bayt never lived in great wealth and pomp and glory at this time, and that they lived a simple life. What was going on with this? Bibi Fatema took this property and she established over it managers to manage these properties and these facilities, and they let these families work on these lands, and they kept it in a similar fashion to the way it was kept, so that these people had aman and safety from the Muslimin, and that they worked for the Muslimin, and they were established in these lands, and her managers would go and oversee this, and Bibi Fatema was the owner of these properties. From amongst some of the managers that I mentioned is, for example, Salman Farsi was a manager of some of these properties for Bibi Fatema as well too. One of the significances of this in history is the description of saying that there's nothing wrong with women having businesses and having professions. Even Sayyidah Khadija, we take a look and we see, had there been something wrong, Allah would not have built the religion of Islam from the wealth of Bibi Khadija. But it shows that there's nothing wrong with this process. However, it's not the priority. Meaning that today when we talk about Bibi Fatema and her attributes, we don't first describe her as a businesswoman. Same way Sayyidah Khadija, though it's well known of her wealth, the description is of her piety, not of her business acumen. Meaning that the most important attribute that a woman can possess that we learn from the example of Bibi Fatema is not her profession, but it's her piety and her role within the family that becomes a priority. Beyond that, all these other items are permissible. There's nothing wrong, which is why both Sayyidah Khadija and Bibi Fatema had properties and responsibilities that they managed. And what did Bibi Fatema do? She kept next to nothing from this property and gave all of it in the service of Islam and would donate it back to the religion of Islam to help the Muslimin and the people. The Ahlul Bayt didn't have an interest in wealth, to the extent where there's a description that says sometime later a man comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and he says to him, Amir al-Mu'mineen, let me teach you a way to make great money. And in some narrations it says he wanted to teach Imam Ali the science of alchemy. Alchemy in that time was a science of being able to turn other metals and materials into gold. And he says, Amir al-Mu'mineen, I see you in difficulty always. You don't have much money. Let me teach you a way that will make you money. They describe that Amir al-Mu'mineen in reply, he says to him, he says, oh, so-and-so, we are those people that should we choose, when we kick the ground, it turns into gold for us. Wealth is not our problem. If we don't have wealth, it's because we don't want it. In the same way, Bibi Fatema wasn't interested in the wealth of this property. She was interested in the service of Islam and protecting Islam, and therefore she used this property to further support the Muslimin and to serve the religion of Islam. Now, why this becomes significant is after the shahadat of the Prophet, one of the things that happens that when the Khilafat is usurped, so is the property of Bibi Fatema. Now, why was this property usurped? The most common interpretation is that this great wealth that would come, and Bibi Fatema was freely giving it to the Muslimin under her father, why would she give it to the one who usurped the authority of Ali ibn Abi Talib? So she refused. But that wealth was so important to keep the religion running that the Khulafa needed to take that wealth back so that they could continue to run a government, finance their armies, continue to suppress the people who were against them and keep this authority running. Here's an interesting point in history. Sometimes people look and they make the argument and they say that why did Bibi Fatema stand up for property? Was she interested in wealth? Was wealth a priority for her, that she wanted her money and someone took her money from her? I thought the Ahlul Bayt were generous people. And the argument comes most commonly that she fought for Fadak in support of the wilayat of Imam Ali. Let me explain. Ibn Abi Hadid, who was a Mu'tazili, who was not a Shia, when he sits with his teacher, he says, why didn't they just give the property to Bibi Fatema? If she asked for it and it was hers, they should have just given it to her. And his teacher replies and he says, you don't understand. If they accepted that Fatima was correct on this property and they gave her the property because she demanded it, tomorrow she would come back and demand and say, give the Khilafah to Ali ibn Abi Talib. And they would have to listen because if she's right about one, then she's right about the other. So some people use this as a point of saying that the entire purpose of the discussion around Fadak is to protect the wilayat of Imam Ali. And it's true that it does protect the wilayat of Imam Ali, but it's even greater than that. Because wilayat and authority over humanity is the position of all 14 of the Ma'sumin, that they have authority over all of us. Bibi Fatima has wilayah over us the way Imam Ali has wilayah over us. Both of them were the ones who were abused after the shahadat of the Prophet, that both of their rights were taken. The right of wilayah and imamat was taken from Imam Ali, and the right of her property and her authority was taken from Bibi Fatima as well too. This is a demonstration showing that both of them were madhloom and both of them suffered after the Prophet. Not that one was the only priority, but both had a priority. This isn't to say that, for example, that there's a competition between Imam Ali and Bibi Fatima. No, it's to show that both of them are oppressed personalities and both had their unique roles within the religion of Islam. And that one being an imam and the other, Bibi Fatima, not being an imam does not in any way reduce her status. It's a difference in status. The example that I give is the idea of Sayyid al-Shuhada Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet, and the Prophet. Hamza, is he greater than the Holy Prophet? No. He became great because of his affiliation to the religion of Rasulullah. But Hamza is shaheed. A shaheed is someone by the greatness of his status doesn't receive ghusl and kafan. Yet our Holy Prophet is someone who received ghusl and kafan. Does that mean then that Hamza was greater than Rasulullah? No. It means that his honor that he achieved was something great and azim, but it is different than the honor that Rasulullah possesses. In the same context, both of these, Bibi Fatima and Imam Ali, are great and they are both oppressed personalities and they are both in authority over humanity, but their authority is different. Sometimes we think about the authority of Imam Ali and we say Bibi Fatima was fighting for the authority of Imam Ali. Yes, but she was also demonstrating in her own right that to believe in her is a necessity of Islam. Shall I explain how? You guys are with me? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Remember we mentioned the statement that Rasulullah said, Fatima bad'atun minni, Fatima is a piece of me. In this statement, Rasulullah extended his authority over Bibi Fatima to say that she is a part of me. Can a prophet lie? No. So meaning that he's explaining that Fatima is just like me in the attributes that she possesses. When the event of Fadak takes place and they usurp her property, the first thing she does is she goes and she says, this is my property given to me in the life of Rasulullah by the Rasulullah. And they say, no, it wasn't. Once they make that statement and say, no, it wasn't, the next step is that she says that, okay, fine, if he didn't give it to me in my life, then it is my inheritance that Rasulullah left. And often we focus on the fact that this was the inheritance of Rasulullah. Let's go back to that first point though, where she says it was given to me in the life of Rasulullah. And they reply and say, no, it wasn't. That's the point of showing the separation between heaven and hell. Because if you say, no, it wasn't, you're saying one of two things. Either she's lying or you're lying. If you say she's lying, then you're saying that the Prophet, na'uzubillah, didn't tell the truth. And the Prophet wasn't truthful because the Prophet said she's a piece of me. So whatever he possesses as an attribute, she possesses. If it's necessary for the Prophet to be truthful, it's necessary for Fatima to be truthful. If Bibi Fatema has to be truthful and you say that she's lying, that means that anything that the Prophet said, you don't believe it either. And you throw out the entirety of your religion, and the entirety of your religion has been wasted. The other option is that you say that you are a liar, and I'm lying. And that immediately shows that if I'm willing to lie, then why should I have authority over Muslimin? And why should I be given the position of power and authority? This entire description and discussion shows that Bibi Fatima was a litmus to separate those who were truthful and those who were liars. If I turn and I say that Fadak was not the property of Bibi Fatima, then either she lied or I'm lying. If she lied, then all of my Islam is a waste because I never believed in the truthness and veracity of the message of Rasulullah from the beginning. And if I lie, I never admitted to Islam myself, and I am someone who has irregularly, unfortunately, taken authority and brought the punishment of Allah on myself by lying against His religion. In this way, we saw that the proof of the authority of Bibi Fatima and why she's the differentiation between heaven and hell was her claim that she brought forward so that, oh, humanity, know that do you truly believe in the religion of my father or are you liars? It can't be that I am a liar. So if you don't follow me, then you never will achieve the support of my father in this world or in the hereafter. So she becomes that separation. And this is how we say that she becomes the process by which Fatima shi'atuha anin nar, that she is the one who will take those who followed her and listened to her authority and separate them from the fire of hell. And that those who are her enemies, Allah will separate them from her mercy and from her support on the Day of Judgment. To the extent that we know that this authority is in the hands of Bibi Fatima, that our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would explain and say, the first one to do shifa and intercession on the Day of Judgment will be me. Rasulullah says, I will be the first one to have the authority on the Day of Judgment to separate and to give assistance to those who are in need. And he says, that piece of me that will be the first to give assistance will be my daughter Fatima. That Allah will give her the right on my behalf to be the first one to intercede. Where Imam Sadiq describes and he says, Bibi Fatima will be that one on that day who will go through the crowd of mahshar and pick out all of the Shia. As a bird picks a good seed from a bad when it eats, so will Bibi Fatima take out every good person away from the evil ones and give them shifa and intercession on behalf of the Holy Prophet. This azamat of her status, this position that she possesses of differentiating between good and bad, and that we can't be indifferent to this issue. If we're indifferent to this issue, if we're ignorant of the issue, then it is that we have given support to and said, so what if they took the property? No, the consequence of them taking that property is that they said that she's a liar because she brought the claim against them. And this is where, for example, we see that even the attribute of how this claim was decided was wrong. How? There's an example from the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. You guys are with me, right? I'm going to tell you a story and then from this we'll come to our conclusion afterwards. We're getting there. It happens at one point in time that Imam Ali is walking through the markets and he happens upon a Jewish shopkeeper who's selling a piece of armor. Imam Ali looks at the armor and he goes, huh? This is my armor. Shopkeeper says, no. Imam Ali says, it's mine. Shopkeeper says, it's in my shop, I'm selling it. You want to buy it? You can buy it. It can be yours, but it's mine. Imam Ali says, no, it's definitely mine. And this is in the dawr of his khilafat. He's the khalifa of the time, but the shopkeeper, there was no internet, so you couldn't get a picture of, like today we get a picture of the president, we know who it is. In those days, you didn't know who the khalifa was. So the shopkeeper and Imam Ali go back and forth for a little while, and the shopkeeper eventually says, what do you want to do about it? Imam Ali says, let's go to the judge and let him decide between us. The shopkeeper says, no problem, let's go. So they go to the mahkamah, they go to the judicial office, and they go in front of the judge. And he brings the armor and they stand in front of the judge. And the judge looks at Imam Ali on one side and he looks at the Jewish shopkeeper on the other side. And as he's sitting, the judge says, okay, Amir al-Mu'mineen, what do you want me to do? As he says this, the shopkeeper realizes, oh my God, it's the commander, it's the leader, the Khalifa who's standing against me. And they say the shopkeeper's colors begin to change. He doesn't look the same anymore. And he stands there in absolute fear that now this is the Khalifa. If he wants, he can have me killed for this. He can take this from me. He can force me. He can do anything. And Imam Ali turns to the judge and he says, pass judgment. I'm not asking you to rule in my favor. I'm asking you to rule, apply law, and determine who is the correct owner of this property. And the judge says, okay, what's your claim? Imam Ali says, I claim that this is my armor. He turns to the shopkeeper and says, what's your claim? And the shopkeeper says, it's in my shop. I'm selling it. It's my armor. I have it to sell. Imam Ali, he turns to Imam Ali, he says, what proof do you have? Imam Ali says, what proof do I need? I'm telling you it's my armor. And the judge replies, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, in Islam, possession is proof of authority. If you're contesting his possession, you have to present some level of proof that demonstrates that this is yours, otherwise possession shows that it's his. Imam Ali says, I have no paperwork to show that it's mine. So the judge says, upon that basis, then I have to rule with the shopkeeper that it's in his possession. And Imam Ali says, I accept the rule of law. The consequence of this was what? The shopkeeper, after this all finishes, comes to Imam Ali and he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah wa Aliyun waliyullah. He says to Amir al-Mu'minin, he says, when I realized that I was standing in front of the Khalifa, I imagined you would use your authority to oppress me. You would use your authority to be right and to take this from me. Yet I found in you a justice that is so unique that even though you were right, and he says, I knew you were right. Why? Because when you were returning from one of your campaigns, this fell off of a camel in the middle of a desert and I picked it up. And that's where it came from. And it fell off of one of your camels that was your possession, and you truly had the right to take this. But you, in spite of having the power and the ability to come and to force me to do the right thing, you didn't do it. You were patient with me and you followed the rule of law. And for that, one who is so humble and so interested in justice that he would forego his own right, I want to follow that person. Now turn back to the instance of Fadak. Who was the one who possessed the property? Sayyida Fatima. Who was the oppressor that abused his right? He took from her her right even though she was in possession of it, and that was the proof that it was her authority. They stole it away from her and said, you have to bring the proof that it is yours, not us who have to bring the proof against you. Which showed the true level of oppression, that they violated even the laws of Islam, let alone that they belied and lied about the word of Sayyida Fatima. This shows the madhlumiyat and the oppression that she went through in her life. And that how extreme that oppression was. That this was that Allah says, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, that this was the khair al-kathir. This was that great giveness given to Rasulullah, and the people abused her so much after Rasulullah that she was forced to say, Subbat alayya al-masaib. That if these difficulties that have befallen me, had they fallen on days, the days would have turned into night from those difficulties. This is that lady who in her support of Imam Ali went and fought for her right and was belied and called a liar to her face in the defense of her own rights and could not support Imam Ali. Yet she wanted to support her husband so that when they came to oppress Imam Ali, they came to collect Imam Ali, she kept him in the house. And they said that we went to the house of Fatima such that there was a hujum on the house of Zahra. Not 3 days after the shahadat of Rasulullah, those who had become Muslim by the barakat of Rasulullah stood around the house of his daughter and banged their swords and shields to create fear in the hearts of the daughter of Rasulullah. Yet she stood firm against them and went to the door of her house and announced to them, this is the house of the daughter of your Prophet. Do you dare to come here? Once they became embarrassed. Again they were sent. Again she would call out and say, do you dare come to the house of the daughter of Rasul? Have you forgotten that my father in his life for 6 months before every salat would stand in front of my door and send salam upon me and call me his Ahlul Bayt. Now you are frightening me with swords. Again, they became embarrassed. The third time, such a zalim came that he said, pile the firewood on her door. She called out from inside, the daughter of Rasulullah is in this house. Do you intend to burn it? And he replied and said, and walau, so what if she is present? They lit the fire at the ghusl, leaves the room of ghusl, comes, sits on the ground and begins to weep. Ayman, who is assisting him, says, Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, Mada yubqik, what made you cry? He says, Oh Ayman, Zahra had such injuries on her body that she withheld from even me. I did not even know the suffering of the daughter of Rasulullah. This was that daughter of Rasulullah who even after this moment that they went and pushed her off to the side, Amir al-Mu'mineen came out to protect her. They took Amir al-Mu'mineen out of the house. They said, how did you take Ali from the house? They replied and said, we knew Rasulullah's command to Ali to be patient in every difficulty. So we knew that Ali would not fight us. We took a rope, put it around his neck and dragged him out of the house. Upon seeing this, Fatima Zahra forgot everything and ran from her house after Ali ibn Abi Talib as he was being dragged through the streets. They said, Fatima called out and said, oh, leave Ali. Why are you abusing him? One of the mal'unin turns and begins to strike Bibi Fatema in the streets of Medina, to the extent where Fatima is forced to say, I am not asking you to leave Ali. I am asking you not to hit the daughter of Rasulullah in the streets of Medina. Such masaib she bore that even after this incident they describe and they say that she would cry at the separation of her father. The crying was so severe that the people of Medina would become upset, that they went and said, Oh Ali, tell Fatima to either cry in the day or cry in the night. We cannot take her weeping. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Oh Zahra, they have complained. She says, I am but a guest here for a short time. Why won't they let me cry over the separation of the best of humanity? Imam Ali made a house for her called the House of Sorrows. Behind Jannatul Baqi, a small hut under a tree was constructed. And Imam Ali would say, Oh Zahra, I do not deny you the right to cry over that who was the best of humanity. But I will take you every day from your house so that your tears and your crying does not disturb these people. And in the evening I will bring you back. He would every morning take Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein as small children, and they would go with Bibi Fatema out to this house under the tree. One day Amir al-Mu'mineen, as he comes to collect Bibi Fatema, he sees Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein with red faces, small children running towards him. Baba, they oppress our mother so much. They cut down the tree under which she would take shade. They will not even let her weep over our father. In this way, they continued her oppression until eventually the end of her life came. They said her sickness progressed from these wounds and injuries such that Sayyidah Zahra became one who moved very little until all of a sudden she became very active in taking care of the children. They imagine that her condition is improving. Ayman replies and says, the daughter of Rasulullah said to me that I will cover my face and lay here. If you call to me and I don't reply to you, know that my time on this earth has come to an end. They say that Ayman, hearing the dhikr of Sayyidah Zahra from her musalla, eventually he said, I heard her voice stop coming. I went and I approached her and found she no longer replied to me. I covered her face and I left her there. Hassan and Hussein, small children, returned home. Ayman says, children, come and have dinner with me. They replied, Oh Ayman, have you ever seen us eat without our mother? Ayman says, I said to them, your mother is resting, let her be. They said, we are the coolness of our mother's eyes. Let us speak to her and she will then feel better. Ayman says, I could not stop the children. They went into the room. They found their mother laying in the room. Hassan came from one side, Hussein from the other. Hassan would say, Oh mother, answer my call. I am your beloved Hassan. Hussein would say, Oh my mother, my soul will leave my body if you don't answer me now. Hassan calls to his brother, A'adhaballah lakal ajr, oh Hussein, our mother has died. The two children run to Masjid al-Nabawi. They go to Amir al-Mu'mineen and call out, Baba, our mother has died. They say in Masjid al-Nabawi, we saw Ali ibn Abi Talib stand up to proceed. then he would sit down. Again, in confusion, he would stand and look around and he would sit down. We said, "Oh, Ali, we have never seen you in such a condition." Ali says, "Zahra has left me. Ali does not know what he should do now." Amir al-Mu'mineen fulfills the will. غسلني عنتني كفني بالليل. In the middle of the night, the ghusl, the kafan is done of Sayyida Zahra. Imam Ali turns to his small children and he says, "Bid farewell to your mother. You will not see her again." Imam Hassan is said to have come and hugged the body of his mother. Zainab and Kulthum bid farewell to their mother, but there was one small boy who would stand in the back of the room and would not proceed further. Amir al-Mu'mineen calls Hussein, "Do you not wish to bid farewell to your mother?" Hussein ibn Ali replies, "Oh Baba, I am no less than Isa ibn Maryam. When Isa wanted his mother, even when she had died, she called out to him." Hussein cannot stand the separation of his mother. "If she does not call to me, I will not go to her." They describe and say that the shroud opened and a call came, "Ilayya, ilayya, ya Hussein." Hussein ibn Ali went and hugged the chest of his mother. Amir al-Mu'mineen weeping at that love between them. Here's the voice of Jibreel, "Oh Ali, remove Hussein. A majlis has started in the heavens. Seeing Hussein on the chest of Fatima, the heavens will collapse if this scene continues out of their grief." Where was that grief, O Jibreel? Why did the heavens not cry out when it was shimmer on the chest of Hussein? Why did no one say the heavens will fall when the son of Zahra was in a state of difficulty? The shahadat of Sayyidah Zahra is something azim that you cannot imagine. That they describe and say that she was so madloom and oppressed. It takes two people to bury a person. When you go to a grave, in a Muslim grave, there is one who passes the body and one who receives the body and places it in the grave. Zahra is one of two people in history who were so madloom, they were not too mahram to be able to bury her. That Imam Ali had no one to assist him bury the daughter of Rasulullah. The other one who was this madloom was Zainul Abidin in Sham burying his sister Sakina. That there was no one to help him. In Sham we say Zainul Abidin chained, wanted to bury Sakina, but no one to receive the body. That we would say the hands of Imam Hussein came, "Oh Ali, return my Sakina to me." And Imam Zainul Abidin would tell his father, "Baba, this amana I return to you." But her clothes were not torn when you left her. Her earrings were not ripped from her ears. Her face did not have the marks of shimmer. Where did Ali ibn al-Hussein learn these words? Look back in Medina when it is Imam Ali burying the daughter of Rasulullah alone. That he is now ajiz and frustrated. How do I place the daughter of Rasulullah, the gift from Allah to Rasulullah, into the cold earth alone? That it was me, Rasulullah, who says, "Ya Ali, this is Allah's gift to me. Return my daughter." It would be Ali ibn Abi Talib the first to cry out, "Ya Rasulullah, forgive me. Your amana's eye was not injured from the strike of the mal'oon. Her ribs were not broken when you left her to me. Her Muhsin was not shaheed when you left her to me." Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ridan biqada'ihi wa tasliman li amrih. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimin. Wa saya'lamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalib yanqalib. Ya Allah, accept the small ibadat from us. By the right of Sayyidah Zahra, keep us on the upright path of Ahlul Bayt. Ya Allah, protect our children in the religion of Islam. Fulfill our hajat, remove our sicknesses, and give aman to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of the son of Zahra. Hasten the reappearance of the one that they describe and say, when Zahra was pushed between the door and the wall, she called out, "Oh my son Mahdi, why don't you come to your mother's aid?" Return the Imam of our time to us. Fulfill the promises against the oppressors. Make us from the upright supporters of Ahlul Bayt. Fatima Hussein.
کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی وہ ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی ایک جل کے دروازے تلے سسکیاں لے کی رہی ہائے ماں زینب کی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی ایک بے بس کی مگینے میں نبی کی گخ کر جلتا دروازہ کسی نے نہ اٹھایا کر ہائے کیسا تھا شکم رکھے کلیاں پہ قدم آ گئے گھر میں شکی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے روتی رہی گانے سنتے تھے یہ بازار میں لوگوں سے علی اس نے مارا تھا ہمارے ہی بزرگوں کو کبھی ہم نے یوں بدلا لیا قتل زہرا کو کیا کچھ نہ کر پایا علی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے روتی رہی جیسے قصاب ذبیحے کو لیے جا کے گئے ایسے گئے کو لئی کھینچ کے لے آ کے گئے آگے آگے گئے علی پیچھے پیچھے وہ چلی جو ہے زخموں سے بھری کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے رہے روتی رہی یاد جب آتا ہے دل ہوتا ہے پارا پارا کیسے حسنین کی ماگر کو لیں گے مارا خون آنکھوں سے بہا صرف یا میگی کہا اور زمین پر وہ گری کلمہ گو ہنس کے لگے فاطمہ روتی رہی وہ ہنس کے لگے فاطمہ روتی رہی باپ کی قبر پہ دیواریں پکڑ کر جانا اور روتے ہوئے اس حال میں واپس آنا اس اذیت کی مگر ہے سکینہ کو خبر فاطمہ کیسے چلی کلمہ گو ہنس کے لگے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنس کے لگے فاطمہ روتی رہی گنگ میں جب چاند کا کلم کا وہاں جاتا ہے تو کی قبروں کلمہ گو ہنسی کے لگے فاطمہ روتی رہی کلمہ گو ہنسی کے لگے فاطمہ روتی رہی یا حسین
متوجه زيارة إن شاء الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله وخاتم النبيين، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا أبا محمد حسن بن علي المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليكم يا معصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، ومحمد بن علي باقر وعلم النبيين، وجعفر بن محمد الصادق، وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم، وعلي بن موسى الرضا، ومحمد بن علي الجواد، وعلي بن محمد الهادي، والحسن بن علي الأسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك والأنصارك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك حجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آله في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعيدا حتى أنشك الأول وتمكيه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. لبيك يا زهراء، لبيك يا زهراء، لبيك يا زهراء.
Momineen, a quick reminder. Momineen, a quick reminder, inshallah, tomorrow we have a majlis to commemorate the shahadat of Bibi Fatema Zahra Salamullah Alaiha, 5 Catawba Avenue, Turnersville, New Jersey, 1 p.m. residents of Bakar Siddiqui, On Siddiqui, and Mazhar Siddiqui. Again, reminder, tomorrow 1 p.m. Majlis at 5 Katawaba Avenue, Turnersville, New Jersey. And we will also commemorate the Shahadat of Bibi Fatema Zahra Salamullah Alaiha as Ayyam Fatimiyya here at Baitul Qaim, starting December 5th, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. When Maulana Afsar Naqvi, inshallah, will address the Majlis from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 5th to the 8th of December, inshallah. We have the keys for a Toyota RAV4 here sitting in the hall. If somebody wants to, somebody forgot about it, okay, there you go. We have the owner.